The Toyota knit tracer works very much like other machine knitting charting devices, and it's extremely handy. These brackets on the knit tracer fit into slots on the back of the machine. They may or may not be positioned just like this machine. This is a 950. The manual for the K33A shows that some machines have a right-hand mounted position. Other than charting devices that are built in, mounting this one to the machine is the easiest job that I've ever seen. Just drop those sturdy steel brackets into the slots and you're there. Here's a closer look at the bracket in the slot. The wire loops that support the mylar go in like this. In order for a knit tracer to do its job accurately, you need to have a really good swatch. So Toyota manuals suggest that you knit 60 stitches wide, even though we're only going to measure 40 of them. We also measure the distance down a length of 60 rows. So they suggest putting contrasting yarn above and below the 60 rows with a few rows of waste so that you have an easy way of setting them off for measurement. After making the swatch, I personally like to let it rest and wash and dry it before measuring for maximum accuracy. The manual says at least pull it lengthwise and then let it rest. These two markers are setting off the 40 center stitches, so we'll measure the distance between those two markers in millimeters. If you're an American knitter and not terribly comfortable with millimeters, it really doesn't matter. You don't have to know anything. Just lay the ruler down there and find out how many millimeters. True, the ruler is primarily showing you centimeters, not millimeters, but there are 10 millimeters to every centimeter, so it's very easy. This distance is 13 centimeters, thus 130 millimeters. Select the ruler that matches the number of millimeters, in this case 92 millimeters or 9.2 centimeters is the width of the 40 stitch space. Slide the mylar into this slot, make sure it's even, rotate it until the bottom row of the pattern appears. And once it's in position, the 0 point of the stitch scale should align with the left hand edge of the pattern sheet. We also need to know this distance, this time in whole centimeters plus millimeters. We input that information here. The knit tracer is now set for a 17 centimeter long swatch. If the swatch measured 17 centimeters plus 4 millimeters, we would rotate this dial to the 4 to record the millimeters. But before making any adjustments, this clutch lever needs to be moved to the all the way up position. In the all the way up position, the mechanism is disengaged, so we'll need to push it back to the right and down in order to actually begin using the device. Now when the carriage passes, it will trip this arm and cause the pattern to advance. There are some adult patterns on the mylar, and I'm going to go past them and rotate the sheet farther to where I've drawn a baby pattern. I'll show you that in another movie and you can draw your own. Today we'll just use it to demonstrate how this charting device tells us what to do. Right now it's telling us to cast on 51 stitches to each side of 0. The pattern actually represents half of the garment. The arrow is pointing to what will be the center and the finger is pointing to what will be the side seam. So we perform every operation on both sides of the work. I've changed to a different stitch scale, so this is now telling us to work with 31 stitches each side of center. And all the way up to the armhole as the pattern advances, we knit straight, still on 31 stitches. This pattern has a knitted on sleeve, so we're going to need to increase. And as that sleeve line crosses spots on the ruler, that's when we know to increase stitches. Time to increase one on each side to 32 each side of center. Now 33. Now 34. Not yet. Getting to 35. Sometimes it's a little bit of a judgment call exactly when you should increase, but just be consistent and you'll be fine. Now when we reach 40 stitches, we'll knit straight to the shoulder and it will keep advancing, but nothing else is going to cross the line on the stitch scale. Here's another judgment call. You will note that I said 40 stitches at this point, but actually it's showing 39 and a half. We can't knit 39 and a half, and I always round up to allow for the seam. Don't worry about this. In a written pattern, somebody's already done that mathematically, because there's no occasion when we can knit half of a stitch. Now we are finished with the pattern, and we would either bind off or scrap off at this point, depending on how we were planning to finish. And you can see that the shape of the knitted piece mimics the shape drawn on the knit tracer sheet. The great thing about a charting device is that I can make this exact same sweater shape with all kinds of different trims, different hems, and different yarns, and still get predictable results. If you are having difficulty with your knit tracer, besides operations videos, our Toyota playlist includes some Ask Jack videos, some of which are on repairing the knit tracer. So I will put a link to the entire playlist in the program notes so that you can find those easily.